Yes.
We'll just give everyone a minute or two to pop in and we'll get started. And everyone's welcome just to kind of start queuing up questions in the chat there. While we wait. Okay, time to get started. Let's see here. News-wise, we have managed to start cutting betas for the upcoming 2025-03 viewer release. I need to push a few buttons to get those available on the website, but you'll be able to actually download these and start messing with them here very soon. Noteworthy features. We managed to get the Mate B release that we were originally going to release last year, and then we had to divert our attention to a few other things. That made the cut for 2025-03. We have a couple of optimizations as well, along with some VRAM changes to hopefully reduce VRAM pressure. I know that there's been numerous people who have been having trouble with Second Life trying to gobble up as much VRAM as is available on the system in some scenarios. Hopefully, we've managed to reduce that substantially this time around. Reflection probes also got a little bit of love. I'm still working through a few bugs on that, but hopefully we will be shipping with the ability to adjust the maximum number of probes that the viewer will attempt to render and keep in memory. I've already found that for a lot of scenarios, this can actually help out, particularly for complex scenarios where there's a lot of manual probe placement. Just going through and being able to reduce that down to, like, say, 16 probes instead of like a full 256 can help out in a variety of situations. Let's see here. It looks like some people are having voice issues. Okay, so just a couple of people having a couple of issues. Not everyone this time. Okay, cool. But yeah, let's see here. What else? What else? What else? Lots of crash fixes, lots of regression fixes as well. I know that some people found an issue with particles on water. We have fixed that with 2025-03. Right now, our fingers are crossed that we'll be able to get this out pretty soon to you guys. Most likely, we're looking at early April. Any higher risk stuff, we've already started to push into next month's release, which is 2025-04. We do have a few provisional items there in terms of what we're going to be focusing on for that. Fingers crossed we can actually get some of the Gltf mesh import stuff working. I want to reiterate before people get a bit too excited for that. This is literally just to import the meshes themselves, much like you can already do with Collada files. This is not the whole breadth of issues that we were originally going to be shooting for. Those are still in the process of getting parted out into individually shippable pieces. More information will come on that as we have it, basically. We'll see about getting some additional material features out to you guys sooner rather than much later, but I can't make any promises right now as our priorities shift around. With regards to rigged or not, like the existing avatar rig should work with it, but we're not going to be supporting custom rigs. So just a heads up on that. Pretty much if you can do it with Collada, you can do it here. No more, no less. That's the intention. Didn't say never. Never say never. Um, that's just a generally much more complex issue, is the thing. As it turns out, whenever you have over 20 years of animations, people really like it when those animations work across every version of your skeleton or other skeletons that may ever exist. That they tend to prefer it if those animations continue to work. So that makes that problem a lot more complicated. And I don't think going through and just having multiple rigs that are inherently incompatible with each other is really a solution to that problem. So, more generally, we are focusing on for each month's release, we're trying to go through and get into a state where we have numerous quality of life fixes, particularly those brought in from Canny, integrated into those releases. This includes, for example, the GLTF stuff. I believe we have some hover height stuff in there as well. Kyle has several that I'm sure he can think of off the top of his head that we're just generally trying to get into 2025-04. This is going to be a continuing trend. So, every release, look forward to not only a bunch of regression fixes, but overall just trying to get more quality of life stuff out into residents' hands and content creators as well. Okay, I believe that's all I have. Kyle, you have anything?
There we go. I guess really maybe just a question for everyone. I recently saw some feedback about people de-rendering the sky to improve gameplay, whether it be piloting or other increased activity gameplay in Second Life. And I want to understand the reason behind that clearly. And yes, and it turns hot pink magenta too. Um, so I just am curious why people do it. Is it just purely FPS gains? And we do have some bugs in Canny about sunset causing decrease in FPS and that kind of thing. And I wanted to get a better sense of why people would de-render any one part of Second Life. Okay. Yep. And yep. Some people, yes, call it Barbie mode. So lag. Okay. Okay. Transparent water. It makes sim crossing better.
It's a curious one.
Yeah, can someone explain that one better? Oh, the Eep Sky shifting. Okay.
Funny enough, I did have some conversations with Philip internally about making the Eep Sky a little bit less, how to put it, jarring wherever you go from one parcel to the next. Don't know when we're gonna have that on the schedule though.
Yeah, and Atlas has given a hint to where it is in the menus for those, if you can see that in chat. We're lost in fog. Huh. Sassy, I've done that one too. In terraforming, you know, you can't see below the water if you really want to make that sim edge smooth or whatever while you're terraforming. I get that one. Yeah, I've done it myself. Yeah, lots of good debugging reasons to turn off ground patch or water. But for normal gameplay, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
That was my big question for the day. Thank you everyone for the quick feedback. That's things to think about.
Yep. Okay. Well, we do have a couple of questions here. So Ty posted a Canny, which I'll go through and repost here. So those who missed it can follow along. So interestingly enough, Bacon Mesh has become a little bit more of a topic internally. We're trying to figure out kind of what things we would like to tackle with that. We haven't made any firm decisions or really gotten anything on the roadmap yet internally. But I am surprised that this doesn't actually work. Yes, Wolfgang, blend options are something we are actively considering. And not only opacity, but just generally being able to blend different layers together, including material attributes. Oh, interesting. Okay. I guess a great opportunity for a question for Bacon Mesh improvements. What are some things that you guys would like to see for Bacon Mesh improvements?
Gaines, I actually put a canny as well. Well, I'm about to. Which, as it's a system layer, but it's a permanent one, it might fall under the same thing, which is to either put the eyebrow sliders in a shape or put all the head face sliders in the hair face layer and keep the body separate as a shape layer. Because people have always wanted to separate the two, but the fact that the eyebrow sliders are not in the shape slider is kind of redundant at this point, because pretty much only Philip runs around with that hair.
I'll have to, well, we'll have to go through and take a look at that and decide what, if anything, we can do about that. of course, with a keen eye on not breaking existing content.
Right.
Okay, I guess I'll start kind of going down the list here. So with regards to PBR Bacon Mesh, it is something that we are thinking about. There's a few caveats to that we have to consider. One really weird thing, because welcome to Second Life, this is just how this works, is cross-compatibility with both legacy materials and PBR materials when it comes down to Bacon Mesh. So that's something we would have to think about. Is that even really worth supporting, being able to mix the two? What does the conversion path look like? How many warning signs do we have to pop up in front of the user just so they know 100% for sure what this is going to do if they try it? Things like that. So that's an example of something that we're considering when it comes down to PBR Bacon Mesh. Again, no final decisions made. We're still kind of working through what will it take to even get there. Let's see. And as far as being able to modify blending on Bacon Mesh layers, like when the layer is no mod, that's an interesting one. That's probably one I would post up just to see how the broader community feels about it before we committed to doing something like that. Obviously, in our community, people have a lot of opinions whenever you start talking about permissions. So I'd want to kind of see where the discourse goes on something like that before we made a firm commitment to it.
I think being able to modify bomb layers that are no mod would open you up to being able to modify mesh layers that are no mod kind of problems.
I mean, it is a little bit more complicated than that, though, right, Sassy? Like, a bomb layer to me is a little bit more different than, say, a mesh layer. Like, that's a little bit different when it comes down to modability and things like that. There's also the factor of what specifically are you allowed to modify whenever the layer itself is no mod. So,
right, we talked in the past about the mod system just being broken up. Like if you can't see the texture and you can't do things to the actual texture, but being able to add glow or being able to change the transparency, things like that, people were into that in the past too. There's security for the creator, but the ability to still do things like tint something or something.
Right.
Like the content creator themselves could like tick some check boxes and allow for this but not allow for that kind of thing.
Right. Definitely something worth thinking about and considering for some potential bomb improvements. But yeah. And as far as like being able to create and modify alpha layers directly in the viewer, like just real-time editing of them, or rather I should say creation of them, not necessarily editing. Beyond sliders that we can expose, I don't think we're going to be doing that anytime soon, I'm afraid. As far as security and no mod, I mean, really it's not as much a well, it's one part a little bit of a security consideration. It's another part people for one reason or another don't want people to modify other people to modify their stuff after they've sold it to them. There's lots of reasons for that. I'm sure there are a million and one arguments that you can find just about anywhere relating to Second Life on that specific point. So PBR is not likely to be getting displacement mapping anytime soon, unfortunately. Actually, an interesting thing for bomb with mixed mixed material types, PBR and the legacy materials. Funnily enough, legacy materials was originally designed using what was one of the specular workflows for PBR at the time. So some amount of convertibility is possible, but it'll never look exactly the same. So in theory, if we were to pursue being able to have both a PBR bomb layer and a legacy or blend Fong bomb layer, that is somewhere within the cards, but users would have to be well informed of what that's going to do and know that that's not going to always look exact. It's not going to look the same as it did before. Also, fun thing about that is it does require the Gltf specular material type. So, hey. And as far as the alpha channel on Blendfong specular, that would not apply. That's pretty much exactly what I'm talking about. That was a thing that we added specifically for legacy materials due to some concerns about skies not looking as they should. Bear in mind, this was a very long time ago when that feature was designed, so it's a lot different now. But when it comes down to things like glossiness and whatnot, the one thing I found is you can actually get glossiness converted over to roughness. Not too hard, actually. The math is pretty straightforward. My success early on with legacy materials was taking the alpha channel for roughness or a roughness map and then just multiplying it by itself inside of Photoshop or something and inverting it, and you'd get within the ballpark of glossiness. So just pretty much be the inverse operation. Viewer would take care of this for you, of course. So. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for kind of giving some more ideas on the whole Bacon mesh thing and some of the things that would be useful there. As always, if you have any ideas that I didn't touch on or you'd like to expand upon, please file a Canny or file a GitHub, whichever works for you more. That way we have a good paper trail there to follow up on. Okay, kind of going on, and sorry, I'm just kind of I'm just kind of answering the questions as I log them and as I find them in the chat here. Custom rigs, i.e. Animesh setups, or all those still work with Gltf upload? So the idea is that if you can import it with Collada today, you should be able to import it with Gltf whenever we get that finished. It's just things like custom rigs that are currently not on the table. They will be someday, but right now, for these first steps into getting Gltf mesh upload working, we're going to be passing on that. We'll revisit it whenever we have a little bit less of a file format existential crisis. So. Okay, continuing on. Sarah asked, noted rather, that texture thrashing and blurring is an issue on all PBR viewers as far as they've noticed, and it's worse on Firestorm. Well, I can't speak to Firestorm, but we have started adding some more controls over how your VRAM is used for textures. There's a new VRAM divisor in 2025-03. Right now we defaulted to 2, so half of your VRAM, and we put a minimum on it as well. So if you only have like 512 megabytes of VRAM, which I know that sounds insane, but you would be surprised at how many people do rock very ancient setups. You'll get 512. If you have 1 gig, you'll get 512. If you have 2 gigs, you get 1 gig, etc. And you'll be able to modify this however you need to. This isn't going to go through and fix, just to be 100% clear, this isn't going to fix like all the blurriness issues. In some cases, it may make it worse. So that's one thing to keep in mind, particularly in very visually busy scenes where you have like a lot of really high-res textures all over the place. But this is really intended just to fix the whole issue of the viewer trying to eat all of your VRAM. So that combined with the reflection probe stuff should help as well. Uh, 8 gigs of VRAM, that will default under 2025-03 to using 4 gigs of VRAM for textures specifically. I mean, divide it by 2. There you go. And as far as being able to bring in Bistro, you should be able to do it. I mean, you may run into a limitation within the mesh uploader, but yeah, I mean, should become more doable here very soon. Oh, as far as like bake on mesh, where you should be filing bake on mesh stuff, I mean, feature requests, just toss that in there. Or if you're familiar with GitHub, you can also throw things on the GitHub. Like my point is, we need somewhere that we can track. That's the main thing. Oh, yeah, sorry, I didn't notice that question as far as being able to select things in the uploader. So just to kind of give more clarity on what our minimal viable product is for GLTF mesh upload, it's literally make it work exactly like Collada works right now. This isn't to say we will never make it better. I would hope that everyone has started to realize that just because we ship things in one state doesn't mean it's forever going to stay in that state. We are working to continue making improvements to things that we ship. This industry is not static, so we shouldn't be either. But initially, it's just going to be what you see is what you get in the current mesh uploader, except GLTF is now a supported mesh file format. In the future, we may go through and add more settings to the mesh uploader, potentially even fork off the current mesh uploader and have a GLTF specific one. We haven't made any firm decisions on this yet, just to be clear. Just that the MVP is just try to get mesh uploading working with GLTF exactly as it works with Collada today.
Kins, I think Nix is talking about when you're uploading materials, not mesh. So when you're uploading materials, when you're doing a bulk upload, you don't get to choose. It's a drop down of all the different states of the material, or all. And she's asking that it be, well, yeah, sorry. My experience lately has been textures. You don't get to just choose the wall and the floor because you already like the roof.
We can look into something like that, sure. Just give you like a selector or something.
Boxes would be fine, I think.
Yeah. Make a canny. We'll go through and take a look at that and yeah. Try to figure out what to do from there. Oh, okay. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, thank you for the link there. Appreciate that. Ah, okay. So it's already a part of that. Okay. Yeah, we'll take a look at this. Thank you. That entire issue, we've been looking at and considering the feedback that's been provided on it. Well, you see, that's what that's what scrollable windows are for. Which we could definitely use a little bit more of. Is there a Canny for chat bar in the official viewer?
Yeah, I think I did one about 2 years ago now, I think.
Okay.
Can't remember that far back. But yeah, because I notice with new residents, they don't know people are talking to them. They don't know where to type. That little chat button doesn't help. It's horrible.
Mm.
I definitely recall seeing it. Let me go dig it up.
There it is. Thank you, Atlas.
Thank you. I'd like to request a Your Cannies button in the Canny system.
Yeah, as far as like any Canny specific feedback, file a Canny on Canny so we know that you're providing us feedback on Canny.
How uncanny.
Yeah, I mean, bear in mind, like with the Canny, there's only so much we can actually do to add some of these things. I think that the seeing which issues you have filed thing is really more of a them than us problem. But if there's some knobs we can look at tweaking, we can certainly do that.
I asked earlier, Gaines, if you know anything about the PBR eyedropper tool, because it's not working. Is there any status on that?
That's the first I've heard of it.
Ooh. Brunutai dropped the potato.
It's pretty bad.
It's brought up in meetings last year, but yeah.
Okay. We can definitely take a look at that. Is it just like tint? Is it anything else in the PBR materials? Is it?
It doesn't seem to stay on a selected color when using like a color palette or when you eyedropper, at least from my experience. It'll start like scrolling all over the palette without landing on one.
Oh.
Can't even get it to show one. Like, it just doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't register at all.
Hmm. Oh, and Stoic, I think that we might have pushed a fix for that in 2025-03. We pushed a few PBR related fixes for copying and pasting materials and uh, materials persisting on meshes properly. But the side dropper thing, that's actually rather concerning. Okay.
I think if you put in a hex code, it does solidify what you've input, but like actually using the user interface and like scrolling around textures, it doesn't seem to want to really do anything logical.
Right. Atlas has found the link for us in GitHub. Gaines, we'll take a look at it.
Awesome.
I have another request to, this isn't a makes fixes request. Can somebody who has access to the blogs and stuff do an updated blog about mesh uploads for Premium Plus members are now possible everywhere? Because you did a blog post saying that we had them and that it was sandbox only, but there's not been any follow-up to say you don't need to sandbox anymore. And I think the second message might actually get some attention for people that missed the first message at all.
Actually, Strawberry's here. She would probably know who to forward that on to.
I can follow up as well. That's fine. I'll take that one. I think some of the emails that Brett has been putting out on behalf of the marketing team had mentioned it, but the initial blog that was in, I'll find it and make sure it's updated.
Thank you, because I just think it's a second push to people to go Premium Plus as well.
And yeah, as far as like Second Life looking old, um, it really depends on where. So, um, we do try not to break old content. That also includes, you know, basically keeping it a bit frozen in time unless, say, a region owner or the original content creator chooses to update it. Um, and I know that we kind of broke that rule a few times, but point is we try to go through and ensure that we don't disrupt things too much here. So. Oh, thanks, Wolfgang. Yeah, well, I mean, this place is kept as it is because no one's really bothered to change it. That's the reason for that. It's quite simple. Let's see, Alistair's asking, are there plans to add game control stuff in the next few releases, even as an experimental feature? Um, so last I checked, that feature is still lacking UX. Once it gets that, then I think we should be good to go with shipping that in the viewer. I'll have to follow up with Signal and Leviathan on that. But definitely it's something we do want to get into a future release. We haven't forgotten about it. It's just we have a very big pile of things to do and only so many priority slots we can fit things into.
Speaking of places like this, I don't understand why we don't just have all the meetings in one location. Like the community roundtable area is really attractive. It would look good when you do the live streaming to the public that look at Second Life. This is not that. And meetings don't overlap, so, or rarely overlap. So I don't know why we just don't have one location for all the meetings.
You know, honestly,
Yeah, true.
I kind of like the idea of like different teams meetings and such having their own unique flares and whatnot. Though definitely this place could use a little bit of sprucing up, so to speak. Um, so, I mean, hey, we have that big old amphitheater right next to us, which, funnily enough, was built for a much earlier iteration of this meeting. So,
Right. I just think that that continuity as well could mean that people might be more inclined to visit the meetings if they just knew that they were going to one place and might just pop in and see what's going on there. That could sort of, you know, get more attention instead of trying to always follow a calendar and a time schedule, etc.
maybe we'll think about it. I did see a question about VR support. There was a prototype I was working on a while ago. Unfortunately, I had to put it down. Um, it's something we may look into in the future. Right now, as we like to say, we have to eat our vegetables before we can really start doing really cool stuff like that again. Um, like performance has obviously been a big one and will continue to be one moving forward. We're trying to get out of the cycle of ship a bunch of stuff and then try to fix all the problems that came as a result of shipping all that stuff for like 3 to 6 months.
Understood. So it's not necessarily a priority right now, but you guys do have it tabled essentially.
it's it's something that we're always having conversations about, is what I'll say.
Okay.
But just right now, we have to focus on a bunch of other things that, in some ways, better sets up a VR effort. Going back to like the whole performance thing. Um, Getting a stable 90 frames per second out of a headset in Second Life can sometimes be problematic. So, stuff like that are things that we have to really think about and figure out how we're going to proceed with. So, just as one example, not to mention just generally kind of getting content creation tooling into a little bit of a better state. I'm sure everyone here can speak to one struggle or another, and a bunch of features that they really wish we would just pull the trigger on already. So, yeah, just lots of things that kind of come before something like VR.
Okay, that's understandable. Thank you for your answer.
Yeah.
fascinated by these FPS reports in local chat here. Sub 30 FPS on 4090s? What else is happening there?
This system has a 3090 in it. Let's see, where am I at on that? Performance tools, statistics bar. Yeah, about 50 for me. Huh. Interesting. What do I have my reflection probe count set to? That's probably why I have my reflection probe count set pretty low. But that didn't really change anything either. Huh.
Speaking of reflection probes, I actually made my building much bigger, did the materials, and suddenly there was a black square in the middle of my roof, and I was convinced it was the texture for like a good 5 minutes before I realized it was I needed to resize the reflection probe. That's going to take some getting used to.
Yeah. Because of the new reflection probe count setting, I'm finding a lot of oddities in our reflection probe system that could really use some work, could really use some love there. So. Yeah, so reflection probe blending has been one of those things that I want to eventually revisit. Just have like a blend factor on every probe, just like everyone else in the industry has. We just didn't because we were really focusing in on just getting PBR out the door in the first place. So. GG, you should be able to look it up on YouTube, I believe, once we're done here. Strawberry, we archive those streams, right? I believe we do. Yeah, CPU will matter a whole lot for you. For example, this the CPU I'm on right now has AMD 3D cache, so I get a little bit of a I get to cheat a little bit, just a little bit. Yes, X3D. No, 7950. Yeah, we have been making strides in terms of performance. Really, what I've been nudging people to do whenever I come across those cases is, try whatever the latest Firestorm beta is, if they're on Firestorm, or, try whatever beta we're shipping for the official viewer. But of course, a lot of people, once they've had a bad experience, they're not going to trust anything you tell them. Really, this is just one of those things where we need more people to try things, and we need those same people to tell us whenever they're still having a problem. So we do have internal metrics on frame rate, just so everyone knows. We do track that very carefully. We do make note of when it goes up, when it goes down, just across the board. And also, just kind of talking about reflection probes even more, and just further on the whole performance side of things, we did rebalance a lot of settings for different quality levels and such. So, for example, if you're on low or low plus, you only get the one void probe, which it should be super fast, even on potato setups. And then the likes of manual probes versus auto probes and such, that's also been tweaked a little bit as well. So you only get like the full everything probes whenever you're like on high plus or ultra. And we increment the reflection probe count, I believe, starting at medium and higher. Starts at like 16, and it scales gradually up to 256. So that should help a little bit with performance. We're still working through a couple of bugs on that, though. Mainly, we just need to find a way to invalidate probes whenever you change that setting. But yeah. As far as if it would help if more people use the official viewer, we actually do get statistics for TPVs as well. So it's not necessary to use the official viewer for us to know how bad people's frame rates are getting impacted. We can actually infer that for most TPVs, and of course Firestorm is somewhere on that list. We very regularly do comparisons just to make sure that before we even release a viewer, things didn't get significantly worse. This also includes crash rate information as well. For game control, no, we haven't really had any discussion as far as that, I'm afraid.
Just catching a topic in nearby chat, I wanted to comment, or even ask another question, really. With the name tags and their bouncing, they certainly, are some impact on FPS because of the alpha contained within them. But what would people feel about if we were to simply switch the default behavior to show briefly versus always on? Or should we just continue to let the user decide on, off, or show briefly?
Is there a way to do it so that if your cursor hovers over it when it's transparent, it reappears? Is that possible?
We could certainly look into that.
Yeah.
That would be useful.
Yeah.
Additionally,
file a Canny on that one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I know personally, I would love to have them off, but I get annoyed with the hover tips and stuff just to figure out, okay, who is that talking or whatever. So I usually end up going back to putting them on.
I don't know how this is set up in TPVs, but whenever you hover your cursor over someone's avatar, it should show their name pop up. So that's another thing to consider here.
Have hover tips on, so when name tags are off, hover tips work the same. If I hover over any of the people here, I get their names and their display names, etc.
Yeah, I've just found it's kind of buggy, especially when you're in a place with a lot of abbeys. It can be really buggy.
That's pretty fair.
The other thing that needs to be fixed on the SL viewer is that chat bubbles broke toasts. So I went 2 years thinking that we weren't getting IMs or any notifications that you had to open the chat button to see anything, but found out it's because I had chat bubbles on that it stops toasts. So that being fixed would be great too.
Yeah. So we are a little bit over time. I want to thank everyone for swinging by. Lots of people this time. As far as stuff like settings metrics, we do actually have settings metrics. That is a thing we do keep an eye on, believe it or not. I don't know that we get them for TPBs. Anyways, thanks everyone for showing up and swinging by. It's good to see everyone. Oh, one more thing before I go. I'm not sure. I think I mentioned this last time, but if not, I'll mention it here. We are going to be having a sort of last Saturday of the month CCUG. This is due to some feedback we received as far as this not necessarily always being the best timing for people. So we want to try and make things a little bit more available to everyone. This first time, we're probably not going to have the live stream going just due to scheduling conflicts. Second, the next time we do it, we probably will. But yeah, more information will be coming soon on that. I'll go through and post it up on the Discord. And of course, the socials as well. So people are aware.
The 20th or not this month?
One sec. Let me check my calendar.
Not on the current calendar currently.
It's not yet.
Thanks for telling us, because we wouldn't have looked for it. We just wouldn't have looked there.
If we do it this month, it'll be on the 29th. Yes, we still have to figure out a few last-minute scheduling details with all parties involved and make sure that everything works. So it may not happen this month. It may happen next month. But we will let everyone know as soon as we have it all scheduled and ready to go.
Is there intention to announce, I haven't checked the Discord because I'm at work, but to announce these meetings inside the Discord? Is there intention around that?
We can certainly do that. I certainly don't have a problem with doing it for the CCUG or the open development meetings.
Yeah, that would be great if it's able to be done.
Yeah, I don't see why we shouldn't be able to do that. Definitely we'll have some conversations with people to
Barry just
figure that
listed
out.
today's one.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool.
Thank you, Strawberry.
Is on it.
Discord's great because we can sort of check that while we're in our real lives and jump on if we need to.
Yep.
Yeah, I like the events options in Discord so that you can actually, set a reminder for yourself and stuff like that. So running the calendar through that would be really handy.
Oh, hey, Jim.